Last week, I put out my spoiler-free review of the final book in the Alphabet Squadron trilogy, Victory's Price by Alexander Freed. Today I want to get into spoilers for the book to attempt to break down the themes of what I thought was a wonderful and thought-provoking story. I'll mostly be talking about themes and not plot specifics if that helps, but if you're planning on reading it, I would be safe and come back to this video when you're done. The end of the second book, Shadowfall, saw Erica Quell return to the Imperial Squadron Shadow Wing after originally defecting to the New Republic. It doesn't take long before we learn that she plans to sabotage the Empire to help her new allies in Alphabet Squadron finally track them down and destroy them. But this is all muddled by the fact that she's done this before in a way. She originally joined the Empire so she could learn to fly, and she planned to defect to join the Rebel Alliance, and she just never did. She got to know her fellow pilots and couldn't bring herself to fight against her friends. On top of that, the Empire was designed to make anyone who ever slipped into an Imperial uniform, even briefly, complicit in its atrocities across the galaxy. The longer she stayed, the more the atrocities piled up, and the less likely she felt she would be accepted into Alliance ranks. She stayed with the Empire all the way up until she took part in the destruction of a planet in Operation Cinder. It was then that her commanding officer, Soren Kais, decided it was time for both of them to leave. Quell was accepted into Alphabet Squadron, although she lied about her role in Operation Cinder. Meanwhile, Kais went off to find a new life for himself, but he became convinced the New Republic would never let him live in peace after they hunted him down to arrest him. So he returned to the Empire, and when Quell's crimes were discovered by her friends, she also escaped and rejoined Kais. But here is where their two stories start to stand for different things. Erica basically decides that she can't go back to the New Republic, but she can atone for her sins. She can try to make things better. Kais decides that he can't live a life free of consequences, so he might as well make things worse. He tries to make it all sound better by saying it's in the name of his fellow soldiers. He doesn't think they will be treated fairly by New Republic courts, and he does everything in his power to basically destroy all records of Imperial atrocities, or at least any personal involvement in them, so the New Republic won't have a way to seek revenge on former Imperials. The book does kind of make a solid argument for his point, that the New Republic could spend decades punishing Imperials and making a show of it, but he doesn't know that will happen. He thinks it'll happen because it's what the Empire would do. He even thinks the New Republic might be developing Death Star technology, for example. Quell is someone who has those similar fears. She is hesitant to fill the New Republic in on what Kais wants because she does want peace for her friends within the Empire, and that's a big theme of all three books, relating to your enemies and refusing to demonize them. Will Lark especially sees his enemies as people he disagrees with, but still people whose lives should be valued. There's a great line from Hera about how she doesn't understand someone's point of view, but she says she doesn't have to in order to respect who they are. The Empire tends to not see things that way. They see everything through their one and only lens, which is why they fear the consequences they will face at the hands of their enemies, who they don't think of as people. Quell is able to stop Kais from completing his mission of wiping away Imperial records, and she reminds him that justice is not the same as revenge. Victory's Price makes a very similar point to a line from Light of the Jedi. Peace without justice is no peace at all. If the galaxy wants to grow and improve, it has to hold people accountable, and people have to be willing to accept consequences, be open to learning from others and growing. Sometimes that means confronting the ugly parts of yourself, the parts that still need to grow, because yeah, sometimes there will be consequences. But Freed argues that if you're willing to grow, look at yourself, say you were wrong, and find a way to move forward, then comes forgiveness. Now, that's not like a blanket forgiveness. The galaxy doesn't look at the Empire or Imperials or Erica Quell and say, all is forgiven, how about a hug? No, forgiveness is a personal thing. One of my favorite scenes in the book is Will Lark telling the story of celebrating after the Battle of Endor. He went for a walk in the woods and stumbled across the funeral pyre of Darth Vader. He saw Luke and the forgiveness in his eyes, and Will Lark, the moral compass, the character who spends 3 books trying to relate to the very pilots trying to kill him every day, he sees Luke and he's like, what the hell? He admits that he doesn't know what Vader meant to Luke, but he certainly begrudges the idea that Vader could be forgiven for anything. However, he does forgive Irika because he saw a change in her and a willingness to grow. All of Alphabet Squadron ultimately forgives her even if the galaxy doesn't fully. She faces the consequences of her actions during Operation Cinder. She accepts them, but the book does leave off with a hint that she might still find ways to atone for what she did. I just really loved everything Victory's Price and the entire trilogy had to say about some of these themes. The story about Vader's funeral pyre really hit me because I think most of us in the audience, we forgive Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi. We know he was evil for half his life, but we're glad to see him come back to the light. So I loved seeing someone who is completely on the outside of the Skywalker saga reacting to it and treating it with the complexity that it deserves. I've said many times that in the real world, I agree, Darth Vader does not get to make one good choice at the end of his life and then get to be forgiven and go to Force Heaven. Of course not. But in the context of this space fantasy mythology, yeah, he does, because Star Wars tells these stories with crazy high stakes to teach us about very real emotions and ideas. None of us have destroyed a planet like Irika Quell, I hope, but we've all wronged a friend somehow, we've all messed up. Maybe some relationships are unsalvageable and beyond forgiveness, but you won't know until you try to learn and grow and face it. And on the flip side, maybe you've been wronged, but maybe there's someone who wants to make things right with you and you're being stubborn. If they're showing a willingness to be better, maybe it's time they got a second chance. But that's all I have to say about Victory's Price today. I really loved it, and it just got me thinking a lot. If you want to check it out for yourself, consider picking it up for free on Audible. Just follow the link in the description or visit www.audibletrial.com/Star Wars Explained. The audiobook is out right now, and the production value on all the Star Wars books is very high with sound effects and music. It's like listening to a movie. Signing up for an Audible trial will get you a credit for one free book, and you can use it on Victory's Price or just about any Star Wars book you can think of. Or get any book you want. The point is, you get a free book, and you'll be supporting the channel when you do. But that's it for today. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel to keep up with all our Star Wars coverage, follow us on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.